Welcome to the Political Insider. Let us do a little wrap of what happened yesterday at the Madlanga Commission. We're going to start there, and before we do that, please subscribe to the channel. It's great to see it growing the way it is. We're building quite a nice community, and hopefully we are keeping you informed with what's going on. So what happened at the Madlanga Commission? We heard from the Minister of Netflix, Senzo Mchunu, and he was testifying again, and it was rough going. It doesn't help that he looks like the saddest human being that ever lived. You know, he does look like a tragi-comic figure. But what followed was the similar drama to what we saw at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee when the same Minister of Netflix testified there, and he had to explain to the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee his understanding of the word immediately. But now he's trying to do it to a judge, Madlanga. And Judge Madlanga knows his stuff, and he just would not let the minister rest with these multiple understandings of the word immediately. It was a bit of theatre. It was a rehash of the same thing. To hear this Senzo Mchunu trying to explain that immediately could mean arrange, it was just tiresome. A lot of waffle. But why is this important? Well, why it is important is that the thing that just does not add up in Senzo Mchunu's telling of the story is that he had, by his own words, a very good relationship with the police commissioner, Hangwani Maumela. Now, remember, Hangwani Maumela's job is to run the police service. The minister is like the political head who's meant to sort of hear and maybe he's meant to be like the Yoda of the police. He's not meant to be like the police commissioner. The guy who actually does the stuff on the ground is the police commissioner. And he said he had a great relationship with the police commissioner, Hangwani Maumela. And on the 28th of December 2024, him and General Maumela actually went to a funeral together. And they got on famously, and never once, while he was going to this funeral and spending the day out with the police commissioner, did he tell him that he intended to disband the political killings task team. Now, it just seems pretty crazy that he would do it. And when he was pressed on this, he said, well, what had actually happened was that he had the 29th, the 30th, the 31st to think about it. And then 4 p.m. on the 31st of December, he just decided that it's time for this political killings task team to go. Now, there's telephones. I know it's December. I know it's the day before New Year's Day. He knew that the police commissioner was on leave. But you can still kind of, phone somebody. It's an important business decision you're making to say, hey, my brother, we're really good friends and we had such a great time at the guy's funeral the other day. How about we disband and hear it out from the guy who's physically running the thing? But no. And the story just doesn't stack up. That a police commissioner, 6 months into his job, should suddenly unilaterally take this decision. So this will just cast doubt on everything he says. And one has to go back, because another sort of part of Senzo Mchunu's defense is something that's new. He didn't mention this at the parliamentary meeting. Clearly somebody did some research to try and throw him a lifeline. To say, well, there was a working group in 2018 that was trying to work as to how best to structure the police service. And in 2019, they came out and had this whole organizational plan. And in this organizational plan, part of it was to sort of cut out these task teams and make the police service a little bit more coherent. But nothing had been done. And all he was doing was he was implementing this plan that had been implemented or discussed and accepted as a good plan, 6 years previously. Really? 6 years the plan gathered dust, suddenly you need to do it unilaterally on New Year's Eve. One should remember that in those 6 years, the police minister was the beheaded Becky Cele, and as we know, according to Kat Matlala, he was on the payroll of the criminals. So therefore, he was never going to do anything that was in the best interests of us citizens. He was only going to do what was in best interests of the criminal syndicates. And in any case, what also makes us look really suspicious was the fact that he chooses to disband this unit just as it was on the verge of making these high-profile arrests, or had made high-profile arrests of people like Kat Matlala, Katiso Molefe. Yeah, so he even said that part of his motivation for disbanding the PKTT was that its work had been completed. Let me say this again. At the time, he was the police minister, and he said, the work of this political killings task team has been completed. Really? Really? Yeah. Are we saying that after that there have been no political killings when we know, because we've had a whole bunch of by-elections because politicians have been killed? We still have rampant organized crime. It's coming out in the commission. But according to him, on those 3 days, he said, well, you know what? We've solved crime. There's nothing to do here. We'll all go home and do Sudoku. We'll just close down this political killings task team, like the only effective crime-fighting unit that the police service had. Really? The work was completed. Anyway, does he think that, the completion of their work, what does he have in mind? Does he think that people like Kat Matlala and Katiso Molefe and Hangwani Maumela went to confession, said, we give up crime because this political killings task team has done such a great job that we'll give up crime, we'll become good law-abiding citizens, we'll go to Uncle Cyril and get a job, maybe being a ward councillor or... come on! These guys had taken over the country. Just look at the Cape. Look at the murders there, right? And he had decided that just because these criminals went and said 5 Our Fathers and 7 Hail Marys, that suddenly the crime had been solved in the country. That was his conclusion. And he conceded that perhaps the best person to have briefed him on whether the PKTT had done its work might have been the political killings task team, might have been the police commissioner. They could have discussed whether to keep the political killings task team or not, but yet he chose not to speak to him. He said that by doing that, by putting out a letter to say, you will disband this political killings task team immediately. This is what the minister said, that this will open up the discussion as to whether we should disband the unit or not. He's already made the decision, and he said, no, he wanted to open the discussion. And it doesn't help that according to the testimony of Lieutenant General Hilda Santumula, there are 10 task teams. And when he was pressed by the commissioners, he admitted that he had disbanded none of the others, only the political killings task team. Now, we've already heard that it wasn't out of line in terms of the money it was spending, although there was undoubtedly waste, right? But he didn't disband any of the other task team. What I find most interesting is that today will be the last day of the work of the Madlanga Commission. And then an interim report will be sent to President Sleepy Ramaphosa, who will probably sit on it for the next 6 months and do nothing about it. But we haven't heard, the Madlanga Commission hasn't heard from Kat Matlala. They haven't heard from Katiso Molefe. We haven't heard from Hangwani Maumela. We haven't heard from the president himself, who also had to be advised on this decision. There are many missing gaps. We heard a ton about Ekurhuleni and their little crime syndicate. But we are talking about national crime. And the work of the Madlanga Commission is going to be done tomorrow? Really? Wow. Okay. This may be the whitewash after all. We'll wait and see. But I still think that, all those days and weeks spent on finding out what a criminal Julius Mkhwanazi was in Ekurhuleni and how bad the city manager Emerson Mashazi was, pales into insignificance with the importance of the criminal syndicates that assassinate people, steal billions of rands from hospital that desperately need the money, and so that people can drive Lamborghinis. It's pretty crazy. Let's move on to other things. We're ramping up here towards elections of the local government elections, and quite clearly things are starting to get quite hot. And nowhere is it getting hotter than in Johannesburg, where the ANC, I know we keep on talking about the ANC, despite the fact that they don't have a majority, in Johannesburg, they're still able to cobble together the coalition together with their partners in the EFF and Patriotic Alliance. And we still have an ANC mayor in the diminutive Dada Morero, who is not very good at his job. And he is facing the long-awaited regional conference in Johannesburg. Now, I know I do spend a lot of time speaking about Johannesburg, but it's an important city because, if change happens in Johannesburg, it would be hard to see change not happening in many other places in the country. But anyway, ANC are having their regional conference, and it's a straight shootout between Dada Morero and his MMC for Finance, Loyiso Masuku. Now, straight out the bat, this was a normal ANC conference that has been rocked by allegations of bribery. Speaking off the record, delegates alleged that they were given brown envelopes containing power banks, an ANC hat, and 3,000 rand in cash, as long as they voted in a certain way. Now, this isn't politics. This is bribery and corruption. Maybe we should have some policemen there, but they're a little bit busy protecting criminals. Understand that the people that are going to vote at this regional conference are unemployed. Like, they are not people that want the best for the country. These are not lawyers that have decided, let me give back to the country. These are people who are hoping to get a job, maybe in the mayoral committee, maybe, in some government city organization like City Power or something like that. A poor ANC deployee can become a rich person quite quickly by getting involved in the low-level municipal gravy train. The one that says, when somebody operates a water tanker, says, I will give you X if you go and break that water pipe. But always the truth teller, Morera spoke of the devil of money and money politics. Oh, these guys have no shame. These are the same people that are involved in this. And we've got to remember that the ANC is fighting for their life in Johannesburg, and it was made clearer with the announcement of Helen Zille as the DA's mayoral candidate in Johannesburg, where a big decision was made by the ANC, where they said they will announce their mayoral candidates who may not be the regional leaders. So in other words, this fight may be for nothing because the ANC, NEC might decide to put some high-profile politician in as their candidate for mayor. The sideshows continue, but one thing that I can confirm is that the G20 is over and Johannesburg is on its steep decline yet again. And please remember, we speak a lot about the ANC, but they only govern because of the support of the economic freedom fighters who say that they don't tolerate corruption, but yet they do. The Patriotic Alliance, who seem to be a step away from joining up with the ANC permanently. If it wasn't for those parties and some of the minnows, we would maybe have better governance. Not to be outdone, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has joined this new ANC trend. You remember recently we heard the president saying, we should do a better job. People really don't like the work we're doing, and let's just stop it and do better. Well, Panyaza Lesufi has got onto that boat, saying that they must cut out the corruption because it's costing them support. He said that the ANC in Gauteng is a sinking ship at a recent conference. Here's the guy who's in charge that says this is a sinking ship because there's corruption. Who does he expect to do something about it? How about the same guy who's been a senior MEC for years? He was there in the Gauteng legislature when the Tembisa Hospital, remember this baby? when the Tembisa hospital was looted, with the help of his provincial officials. He hasn't got out saying, look, guys, I can't take it anymore. It was so-and-so over there who was involved in that corruption. He knows. This is the same guy who was in the same legislature when they decided to kill 144 mentally challenged people in the Life Esidimeni scandal. He didn't hold anybody to account. When he became premier, he did nothing about it. He was MEC for education when he took the decision to blow hundreds of millions of rand during COVID by fogging empty classrooms. He hasn't held anybody to account. I'm sure it wasn't his decision to waste our money as ratepayers and taxpayers, because he's the guy, he's the great corruption buster. Couldn't have been him, must have been somebody else. We know that he was, as Gauteng Premier, the guy who started, against all legal opinion, including that of the Public Protector and the Minister of Police, decided, or not the Minister of Police, but the Police Commissioner, decided to start his own militia here in Gauteng just ahead of the elections, even though everybody said it was illegal and a waste of money. That's cost hundreds of millions of rand. I'm trying to work out who Panyaza Lesufi wants to be the person that should stop the crime, if not him. He's the boss. Who are you waiting for? Batman? Do you expect somebody, Mkhonazi? Who else? You're the guy in charge. So who knows how the ANC works? Let's hope it's that sinking ship that we talk about. I want to close with a story that puts some of the workings of the commissions, like the Madlanga Commission and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Commission, into some kind of context. These are not academic exercises. We have to understand that while the police are in bed with criminal syndicates, you and I, as South African citizens, pay the ultimate price. And it became clear yesterday when our acting Minister of Police, Feroz Kachalia, released the latest crime statistics. 63 South Africans are killed every day, murdered every single day, 23,000 per year. That puts South Africa on par, very close, to the number of Gazans killed since the 7th of October. Let's just think about that in a minute. That puts us very close to the number of Ukrainians killed since Russia invaded nearly 4 years ago, in that same period of time. Now, I'm trying to work out who's going to take us to the International Court of Justice. The few remaining surviving citizens, do we take our government to the International Court of Justice? Like, when does it become a genocide? I mean, I know people throw that word around a lot, but remember, we took Israel to the ICJ when fewer than 20,000 Palestinians had been killed. We kill more than that every year. Should we not go to the ICJ? Is it just a numbers thing? Does it matter who's doing it or who the victims are? If it's just the citizens? I know the president and politicians vehemently deny that there's a white genocide. But there's something going on here that puts us in the top brackets in the world. Does it have to be a specific group before we call it a genocide or before somebody acts? Right? Remember, just a few weeks ago, we had the president of the country lecturing the 19 best-run countries in the world that they should have the spirit of Ubuntu that we've got in South Africa. Ubuntu? We kill about 10,000 women and children every year in South Africa. 10,000. Does this tie up with the spirit of Ubuntu? We know that instead of trying to protect our criminals, our police service work together with criminal syndicates who then drive Lamborghinis, and the Metro police services are run like minor mafia families. Then all they can do is either help criminals or try and extort streetwise twos from the citizens of the country. So perhaps we should take a leaf out of our own book before we take anybody to the International Court of Justice and sort out our own genocide that we're doing against our citizens in this country. perhaps before we preach to the G20 that they should adopt Ubuntu, we should adopt Ubuntu. Maybe that would be a good place to start. That's just my thoughts. If you agree with me, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and we'll see you again on the Political Insider.